here. Here we go. My name's Todd.
And this is Cathy.
Welcome back to another episode of Zen Parenting Radio. This is podcast number 740. Why listen to Zen Parenting Radio? Because you'll feel outstanding.
740. I like that number.
Why?
Because it's just solid. It's like it's not like 738. It's like 740.
Wow. Now I understand. Nice job.
If you add 7 and 4,
it's 11.
And I love that number. There you go.
Why listen to Zen Parenting Radio? Because you'll feel outstanding. And always remember our motto, which is the best predictor of a child's well-being is a parent's self-understanding. On today's show, we have our friend, Michelle Eichard, and she is an author of multiple books.
Mm-hmm.
The last one that came out is called 8 Setbacks That Can Make a Child a Success. Before that, we had 14 talks by age 14. And I think before that, we had middle school makeover. And Michelle is also going to be one of our keynotes in about 6 weeks at the Zen Parenting. Don't call it a conference. Sweetie, don't call it a conference.
I know our marketing person, Michelle, she doesn't love the word conference. She feels like it's stuffy and outdated, but there's no, we can't find another word.
No, we can't.
Your listeners can't see my face, but hi, first of all, hello, thanks for having me. And not call it a conference is so surprising to me, but all right, now this gives me something fun to think about because I want to think about.
Yeah. You think about it, and I still do. If you look at anything, I write conference because, like I said, but she, Jess, my friend who does this work for us, she said call it Zen Parenting 2024. So, but then it's hard to,
like what is that?
That's what I mean. Then it's hard to navigate when people are like, well, what is that? So anyway,
well,
you didn't do any clapping.
Let's give her a special welcome. Without further ado, I present to our listening audience, Michelle Eichard.
Yes.
Michelle, so glad to have you. And sweetie, how did we get into Michelle's world? How did we come across Michelle?
Oh, geez. What was the first time I saw Michelle's stuff? I mean, I knew middle school makeovers. I saw it everywhere, but I don't think I had seen her face. And then when 14, questions came out, everybody had it. Everybody was talking about it. It was everywhere. It's a bestseller. And then I think I started following Michelle, and she's now, and this is going to sound so like it's about us, but I just thought you were a lot like Todd and I. I was like, she's funny.
Which means you're awesome.
I know. What a compliment. Thank you.
Well, that's what I mean. It's kind of like I should just be focusing on you, but you talked about movies, and you didn't take yourself too seriously. And you also you are really smart. And the things that you say, I fully, I love your Instagram page. I'm there all the time. And I also think at the time you were talking about things that we were talking about. You were talking about rights for LGBTQ kids, and you were talking about gun control things. And I just felt like there was a lot going on in the world, and you were speaking up. Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is somebody and then you're just great. And you are, good friends with our friend Duffy as well. And then, it kind of like snowballed. And so now you're my friend.
Oh, that is nice to hear. I do feel like we are of like mind and like spirit and like humor. And I think that makes it really fun.
It does. And Michelle has Academy Award parties, Todd.
Oh, really? Do you do the grid where you got to tally the votes and all that like we do, or no?
Well, the way that I do it, so I've done it 2 ways, but I watch all the Best Picture nominees and as many of the others as I can. Yeah. I put on my Instagram my review of each of the Best Picture nominees, and then I either do a very private viewing of the Oscars, where I have scored my card and I keep up with it that way, or I do a party with friends. And I think I am more inclined to just watch by myself because I miss too much when everybody's talking, and I don't want to be the jerk at the party shushing people. So it's best for me to just be alone. I did have COVID last year, so I had to be by myself for it. But yeah, that's kind of how I handle it.
And you know what we have, Michelle, because I'm the exact same way. I've been having these parties since like college, and I, there people would come to my room, and then I'd be like, I'm trying to like hear. So it's always been a struggle. But now we used to have Twitter. Now I'd say Threads. And we also have text. So when something happens, you can just look at people's reactions, and you can also, like text people and be like, did you see that? So we can still stay connected.
It's like an interactive thing.
Yeah,
now
it's interactive even if you're alone.
Yeah.
Okay, you're the first person to make me want to get on Threads, just so I can talk to you on the award night.
You know what? I would say do it. I think, you know, I've been there for a while, and it's not quite there yet where, you know, we used to be with Twitter, but all of my people, when I say my people, they're not mine, journalists, you know, experts, people have come over. So it's like, I'm finding things there now. And, but it's, you know, it's in its beginning stages. So, but
well, it would be nice to get in on the ground floor. I was so late to Twitter that I was always confused and behind and felt left out.
I'm looking at the winners of the best picture in the last few years. And I was flying home from Italy because we visited our daughter over Thanksgiving, who is studying in Italy. And I saw Parasite. Did you see Parasite, Michelle?
Well, let me tell you what happened to me when I saw Parasite. Parasite was so scary in the theater. I had not seen a movie like that before that got under my, like, unnerved me kind of scary. And I was with my daughter and we pulled into our driveway and she gasped at something and I peed my pants.
Oh.
It's like, you were like, that was going to come one way or the other.
Yeah.
Whatever was going to set me off.
It's something like, I was such a live wire after seeing that movie. I loved it so much.
That's so interesting. Cathy, I don't think you'd make it through because it oozes discomfort. Would you agree with that, Michelle?
Absolutely, yes.
Like there's so much discomfort, not like people murdering people, but like human beings making bad decisions in a way that I've never seen. And it's all titled.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, what about this here? This is what I ran to grab off my printer.
All right, what do you got?
We started. Okay, so we don't know yet what's going to be selected, but I did look at the Vanity Fair predictions.
Okay.
And of these, I have seen a half because I'm already starting to do my homework. The one I like the best right now is May December, and it's free on Netflix. So.
Yes, that's my next big, like I was with some girlfriends last weekend and I'm like, I'm so excited to watch it. And I'm sad to say it has all the elements that I love. Besides when I say sad to say, it's because even what the topic is, I used to be obsessed with Mary Letourneau. Yeah. So I like just even that part of it. Mary Kay Letourneau, is that her name? So
that's right.
Is it really good?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I went into it knowing nothing. I didn't know about that. I just, within a few minutes of watching, I was like, oh, wow, she looks just like, and they were showing some news clippings and I was like, oh, could it be? So I went and Googled and it said, yes, this is definitely based on that. And again, deeply disturbing and unsettling for many of the same reasons that we just discussed, like wrong decisions. We know this already, but it was so well done. I'm still thinking about it.
Oh. Don't you think, Michelle, like this, and this is kind of like diving into our work a little bit, is because we work in the world of human behavior and, you know, supporting people and supporting people and making decisions that hopefully have good outcomes. We can never guarantee that. It's really enjoyable to watch a movie and watch people make these decisions and like really deep dive into why they do what they do. I think it helps my work. Do you think it helps your work?
100%, because you try to get the motivation.
Yeah.
You try to develop. My favorite book or movie is one where you end up feeling for someone you didn't think you could feel for.
Totally.
I love when that happens. And I think that's very useful in the kind of work we're doing, where everyone's making bad decisions all the time because we're human. I am, you are, parents are, kids are, and we're still trying to figure out how to move forward while being perfectly human at the same time. So I think it's really this exercise of watching these movies and watching movies I would never choose on my own is really about growth and entertainment.
It is. And it's really being able to hold, you know, these really good movies that we're talking about, being able to hold that paradox and nuance about a character, like a movie that I've watched a million times, and this is a comedy and not a deep drama, but is The Hangover. Okay. Yeah. So there, you know, you're supposed to, if you watch that once or twice, then you think Bradley Cooper's like a jerk and he's the worst friend or whatever. And the more you watch that movie, the more you realize that he's actually a good friend. He is not he's still a jerk in this way, and he's, you know, he steals money from his students. There's things in there, small things, but that's why it's easier to watch a movie though, because I don't have to deal with, okay, that is a deal breaker if he was my friend, you know, like I can just see that it's just, if you ever watch The Hangover again, just, not that it's hard to watch Bradley Cooper, but listen to what he says to people. He's very supportive. It's very interesting. And that's even a comedy. So you can only imagine I'm really annoying to watch movies with sometimes because.
Oh no, I love to beat a dead horse.
Me
I
too.
watch a movie and talk about it over and over and over again. You know, he's in a Best Picture nominee.
Yes. Did you see it? It's not out, right?
Maestro? Is that it?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. I saw something on CBS Sunday Morning, which is like the oldest TV show of all time. I can't believe I watch CBS Sunday Morning now. But they did an interview with Bradley Cooper about him playing that role. Leonard Bernstein. He's like some guy that's from the REM song. That's the only reason I know about him.
Oh, come on. That's it. That's it.
How could I have come across?
Because his music.
Not my
So
attention.
I think Michelle and I both know, because she reads all the time, that he's probably going to get a nomination, and Carey Mulligan is probably going to get a nomination too. I've heard that's whoever. I mean, again, it's Bradley Cooper. He's probably he directed it too, right?
He's phenomenal. I really like Carey Mulligan. That would be great. Yeah, there are a lot of good ones here. I don't really like Oppenheimer.
I didn't see it.
I haven't seen it yet, but I will.
All right. Well, I won't say anything because I loved it.
So I love Bradley Cooper, and then we'll get to parenting.
Yeah. Get there, everybody.
But I what's his name? Rami Malek won for the Queen movie. What was it called? What was the Queen called?
It was called
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody. I was like the song.
And he was going up against Bradley Cooper, who wrote I don't
Stars Born.
Yeah, he directed it and he acted in it, and he took away the awards from Bradley Cooper because I feel like Bradley Cooper was totally robbed. And I feel like I'm in the minority. I think most people are like, yeah, Bradley Cooper was good, but Rami Malek was better in that. Michelle Eichard, what is your stance on who should have won that award?
Which kid? This is a parenting question. Which kid do I like better? Is what you're asking me. It's really, it's so hard.
Yeah.
Who do I think should have won that year? This is killing your podcast because I can't decide.
No, it's not.
I cannot decide. I loved them both.
Correct answer is Bradley Cooper.
Okay, fine. Yes. I'll follow the crowd.
I have a quick parenting question.
Okay,
but if you go.
Well, I was going to give my opinion, but it really doesn't matter because I think that I'm a little like Michelle. Like you can't. If you've seen Bohemian Rhapsody, right?
I saw it.
It's insane what he did in that movie.
Great.
The thing about Bradley Cooper, the reason that I'm so invested in that performance is because he did sing, he did change his voice, he did also direct, he put that whole thing together, and in that it's such a heart-wrenching movie. But anyway, now parenting question. Go ahead.
Michelle, I feel like let's start with challenges. My biggest challenge as a father, I think, is I get distracted by trying to be productive in lieu of being completely attentive to my wife and my daughters. That's one of my judgments of something I'm not really that good at, that I'm working on, but I'm still got a ways to go. I want to start with you. Like, you're a parent, parenting expert. People call us parenting experts, whatever. Like, we're struggling just like everybody else is. Which facet of parenting do you find the most challenging? Oh,
this is so easy because I am working on this right now with my therapist. It's like a real breakthrough that I'm having, which is so good. So often how we parent is some kind of a reaction to how we were raised, right? And I was raised in environments that in an environment that started off really chaotic and then shifted after divorce and remarriage into a highly structured, strict environment. So I went from one to the other as a little kid. And what I do now, and I didn't realize I was doing it until I was bringing stuff up for me. And so what I do is I really try to manage everyone's emotions. I am such a sponge for how my children are feeling and how my husband is feeling. I want the house to always feel good. And I will go for good at the expense of being a human who has a full range of emotions, you know? So I'm like, so cautious. Did my husband just snap at my son? Are his feelings hurt? Did my son not play golf with my husband when he said he was going to? Now, is he going to be upset? And my daughter needs this or that. And it is exhausting to manage everyone's emotions. And so that's my thing for the holidays is I'm going to sort of tell them like, oh, I've had this epiphany. And, and what I'm going to try to do about it is take you at face value. And if you tell me you're upset or you need something, I will help you. And if you don't, I'm going to assume that I don't need to have a reaction.
Ooh, I
Wait,
struggle.
does that sound familiar?
That's my life. I mean, that's kind of what I mean. Like, that's what I mean. Like, you know, when you just know someone, like you're like, I struggle maybe for different reasons. Our background may not be exactly the same, but I ended up with the same coping mechanism, which is make sure everybody else is, if everybody else around me is okay, then I'm okay. And what that does is exactly what you said. Then I am completely not regarding how I feel. Now, the interesting thing is, I do know how I feel. This is why I do what I do for a living, because I had to kind of figure out feelings and, you know, allowing children and adults to talk about them. So I know what I'm feeling, but I'm willing to sacrifice it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm better if everybody else is okay. So if they're okay, and again, it's that nuance thing where it's like, sometimes that's fine. You know, you guys choose a restaurant, I'm cool. But it's when to your point, I am sometimes exhausted by everybody else. I don't even know how to say this anymore.
You're saying it exactly the way I feel it. It is, sometimes I don't care, but a lot of times I will exhaust myself in service of making sure that everyone else is feeling okay and getting exactly what they need.
Exactly.
And that ultimately is not good. I can't tell you the number of times my kids have said to me, can you just sit down? Like, just relax. And I'm like, no, this is relaxing for me. I like this. Tidying or whatever it is.
And we're like gaslighting ourselves in a way because
100%.
Because it's that really, I think a lot of people, and I'm going to say a lot of women, I'm going to generalize, can really understand this weird place where it's like you actually are okay multitasking and doing everything because you're used to it and you've done it. And when everyone's like, sit down or relax, you're like, no, this is what I do. But then the big question is, what would I do if I wasn't doing this?
Yeah, I think, can I really relax when the dishes are sitting over there? Can I really? And I know I need to just get to a point where I'm like, I can, because it's a little toxic to be like irritating everybody else in order to really in the name of being helpful. It's weird.
Well, and I think that this is a very typical dynamic between a heteronormative couple. I feel that I am sometimes way tuned out. Like I am in my head, I'm in my body, and whatever's happening out there is whatever. And Cathy, I think, is way too tuned in to everybody else. And I feel like I need to move over here, and I feel like she needs to move over there. One thing I heard you say, Michelle, was you said, if you're going to ask somebody, your kids, your husband, whatever, if they're okay, and if they say yes, you're going to believe them. Now, Cathy has this intuition that she knows if I say I'm okay and I'm not okay, she knows I'm not okay. So if you ask, but your intuition tells you something different, are you going to be able to lie to yourself successfully and be okay?
I think what I'm going to have to do is not lie to myself, but since I'm going to preempt this like social experiment by telling them what I'm doing, it's not that I'm lying to myself. I'll have to say, I still get like internally, I still get the sense that things aren't okay, but I have to believe that you'll tell me when you're ready or you need to. And until then, I can't make it my problem. Like I'm going to give you an opening and you're always welcome to come tell me, but I don't need to fabricate. That's what I do. I worry that there's a potential for bad feelings and I want to smooth that over before they happen. So I'm going to try really hard not to worry about the potential.
And if I'm married to somebody who's always going to ask me, it's going to take away my responsibility to ask for help. If I know Cathy's always going to come to me when it hits the fan, then I don't have any option to do it myself. Now, there's this middle ground somewhere though, because if you completely tune out, that's probably not healthy, but there's a middle ground that needs to be had. And I think that in most moms, I'll call it rescue or hero or martyrdom, where they're taking way too much responsibility for other people's emotions. And I, as a dad, I think am taking way too little responsibility for other people's emotions.
Yeah, I think that's sort of how it is in our house too. And my husband and I have a great marriage, and like you guys like really enjoy each other, and our house is full of love and comfort and fun and like all the right stuff. And I do think we both need to come more towards the center.
Yeah.
So, I will say the very best thing about my husband, the very best thing is that he's great at getting feedback. Like, I'm sensitive, so I'm not as good at it, but he's really good. So if I say, this is how I want to handle things, I think he'll be delighted and like, okay, let's try that. So
that's huge. And that is because that is something that I really appreciate about Todd too, is two things about, I am very sensitive too. And when we say that, sometimes people will be like, oh, that means you're oversensitive or dramatic. And that's not really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is because I do feel a lot of things, I do sometimes need to negotiate a situation or ask for help, or, it's like the sensitivity is just, I can't do this, or we need to do this. It's like, and he's really good about, he's not, maybe sometimes you can get defensive, but for the most part, he's like, okay, well, explain to me. And then I will. And he's like, okay, down. He's like, he's in. So that's a gift. I always think about that being friendship. Like, Todd trusts me. You know what I mean?
Well, and I will say 99 times out of 100, I actually do get defensive in the beginning. Like literally the moment, like even if it's like, biting my nails and she can hear the clicking of the teeth against the nails, she'll like move my hand out of the way.
Very gently though. I don't like yank.
Right. Yeah. It is gentle, but it's still a movement.
Yeah.
I get defensive every single time, and you have every right to ask me to stop making that terrible sound, but I will just say once I collect myself, and maybe that collection takes 5 seconds, maybe it takes 5 minutes, but I do come back to center. But my initial is always one of, don't judge me.
Yeah. Well, I think that this relates, just to pull it right back to parenting. I think that this relates totally to how we parent our kids, and what you said, Todd, in the sense that, like, if we take on all the responsibility for managing everyone's emotions, then we're really denying them opportunity for growth and learning and the rest of it. And so whether that's with our partner or whether that's with our kids, I think like the more we can shift responsibility and opportunity and, and all of that to other people to manage themselves, the better everybody is.
I know one of the best things, this is like how slight this is for me. Like, this is just a little piece of how I do this. My therapist actually retired in August. Michelle, it was awful. Like I started seeing her. I know.
What a jerk.
I know. It was like, I started seeing her in 2016. And I didn't see her all the time. It was just somebody that maybe once a month. And it was just, it's almost like having a clinical advisor. I mean, it's more than that. We went deeper, but it was like just someone to like throw, therapy is just great. And one of the things that because we would talk about this issue all the time, and the thing I did, I can actually speak about it more, and what I ended up doing is one day my daughter came home and said, I want to do something. She wanted to, go to Jewel or something and get stuff to bake. And I said, I'm actually about to take a walk. Let me know if there's a time constraint or something like that, or is this an emergency? And she's like, no. And I said, okay, I trust you with that. I'm going to go on a walk and then I'm going to come back. Why that's a big deal is normally I would just not go on the walk.
Oh, 100%. I would ditch a walk.
Right. Help. Exactly. I'd be like, I don't need the walk. Oh, sure, I'll take you. Yeah, time together. Yes. Especially because, when you work with middle schoolers, in your most recent book, it's high school too. Like, you're working with older kids now too, is that you start to get in your head about, they're asking me to do something, so I want to do it. I don't want to miss these chances. They're leaving soon, blah, blah, blah. And the language I really use is I say back to them, okay, I'm going to trust you with that. Not like, I trust you, not like in a tone like that. But if you're really telling me there's no emergency, I'm going to take you at your word. And then when I get back, I'll take you.
Yes. And I have to think, even though I haven't been good about this and I'm determined to get better at it, I have to think that it is a huge relief to the kid to know that I always say this about other things, but it's clicking for me right now that it's true here too. It is a relief to kids to know they're not the center of your universe. So when a child feels as though their success and their happiness and their social performance and their academic performance and like their performance in general in life, of life, has an impact on how you feel all the time, that's really hard for them to feel that like, well, it's one thing if my friends are sort of ignoring me right now, that hurts. But to think that it also really hurts my mom is crushing, right? So I think that the less we are entrenched or enmeshed in that way emotionally, the better it is for our kids. So just to hear them, or for them to hear you say, yes, I can help you with that later, I'm going to do something for myself right now, is a gift.
It is. And I feel like just even I used to be like, well, if I have to work or something, then it feels innate. I wouldn't cancel a business meeting. It feels like something that they'd have to understand. But it's always that struggle of when it's something for me. Like I'm going to go take a shower or I'm going to go on a walk. And that's, and that's the work. And that in itself, Michelle, you're right, is I feel like when the kids are really little, we're teaching them things about, hey, I go out with my friends too, or your dad and I go out on dates, or we have nights to ourselves or whatever. But then as they get older, it has to be, it's not just like, look at us. It's like, we really have to, you should be living it all along. I wouldn't want it to be a show, but as they get older, you really need to live it. Because that's how they get permission to do it themselves.
And it's so true. We hear over and over again, like, it's kind of that carpe diem thing. Do you remember when that's sort of what put Glennon, what's her name? Doyle.
Glennon Doyle. Yep.
Kind of what put her on the map was she wrote that thing about how someone turned to her in Target and said, carpe diem, you should love every single moment with your kid. And she was like, but I don't, it's awful. And that was a great sort of introduction there to her. But I think about that a lot when people say that about kids who are in high school and about to leave the nest, as you said, like you have to get them when they're available. It could be midnight if they want to come in and talk to you and wake you up, you have to listen. I can't pull that off. Like if I'm tired and I need to sleep, sorry, kid, we got to talk another time. And I want parents to hear that you are not always in service to building this connection. It'll happen more naturally than that.
Yeah, we're in service when they show up and they're infants, and we literally have to stop in the middle of the night. And I feel like sometimes parents still think they have to play by that playbook, and it's because these transitions are so subtle, we don't notice. Like, we got to let these people stand on their own 2 feet.
And something that we were able to share, we have a virtual community called Team Zen, and a lot of them their kids are graduating this year. So they're having this feeling of, oh my gosh, not just empty nest, but this kid, they're going to go off and I have to give them all this learning before they leave. And I know, because you have 2 kids out of the house. We have 2 kids out of the house. We have one who's still here, that relationship doesn't end. Like, we're with our kids all the time.
They're home all the time. What is with that?
So like, that's something that we can now say with experience, is that it's not, I feel like we need to build this connection and live this life as if our kid is going to go off and never come home. And, it alters, obviously, because they're in a more adult world and it's more about their time and their schedule, but you keep building in that relationship. So, do you find that too?
I have loved every phase. I'm like, this is where it gets really fun. No, this is where it gets really fun. Yeah. My husband used to say, oh, the family fun factor is going way up. Like, now we can take longer trips. Now we can do this. There's always something to look forward to. This Thanksgiving break, it was being able to go to a pool hall and everybody's 21 and we could play billiards and everybody could have a, whiskey and Coke. And like, I was like, this is like being out with our friends for the evening. Like, this is so fun. So it's always one more thing that we're sort of ramping up to, that I'm like, wow, even better. And then meeting a significant other. And then, there's like the fun just continues to grow exponentially for me. So I've enjoyed all the growth.
And the ability, like, just going back to people who listen, with younger kids, the ability to have those times with our kids when they're older, it really starts young as far as the, all these things you write about, the allowing our kids to have their own lives and talking to them about their challenges, also letting them fail. And this language gets so difficult for people, letting them fail. You're not going to create a failure for them. You're not going to put it on them and then say, I'm not going to help you. You just trust them with their lives. And if you trust them with their lives, when they're 18, 19, 20, getting into their 20s, they come to you because they're like, you're someone who trusts me with my life. So let me talk to you about these things. Like, do you already talk about that in your, I'm trying to remember, especially middle school makeovers, this probably isn't the one, but do you talk about that in your books about building that connection early on?
Yeah, I think a big piece of building that connection is worrying less about teaching them a lesson, worrying less about being right, and making sure that they know what's right. Parents feel like, I have to hammer this home because they're going to go to college. And if they don't know how to be a kind, thoughtful, independent, mature, perfect person by the time they leave, then I've run out of time, right? And so we will sacrifice our relationships in order to teach a lesson. And then when your kid is coming home for Thanksgiving break, and then 3 weeks later coming home for the holiday break, and then maybe their spring, like, you see them a lot, as we said, you don't have a lot of foundation there anymore, because what they're remembering was you being insistent on things instead of being flexible.
Well, it's so funny. Two things. One is Rob Bell was a speaker at one of our earlier conferences, and I love Rob Bell. And one of the things I remember that he shared is the idea, like, we feel like we always have to be bestowing these lessons on our kid. We need to be teaching our kids. And one thing he said was, it's too late. You already are. You're teaching them everything: how to be a jerk, how to be loving, how to be mature, how to be immature, how to be conscious, how to be unconscious. Like, you're teaching them every single day based on how you live, which sounds cliche, but it's the total truth. And when one thing you just said, so we do these Zen Talks twice a month with our team, and there's a friend of mine who was telling me about he's worried about his daughter in college, and she's a junior and she's halfway through, and like, he's so worried. And he was able to kind of see through it, but like, I think he realized that he was buying into that there's a certain way that this is supposed to go. And I'm like, dude, if you were halfway through senior year of high school, I would agree with you. But
wait, she's a junior in college or junior in high
she's
school?
a junior in high school. She's a junior in high school. So they're talking about the college experience that's upcoming. So sorry about that. And I said, if you were worried halfway through your daughter's senior year, I would agree with it. But the fact, like, I feel like he's already drinking some of the Kool-Aid that we have to be doing certain things. And the moral of the story is, you just got to make sure that you have your kids back and they see you as an ally versus an adversary moving anywhere. And I just wonder if you could share anything about that.
I love that so much. I have been telling this story, came up sort of organically as I'm on this book tour. And it I think is sort of the perfect encapsulation of that. I can't tell you how horrified parents are when they hear this story that is seemingly, to me, not such a big deal. But I talk about how my son, who's now 21 and a senior in college, had braces for 6 years growing up. It was a long period of wearing braces. And you pay your flat fee. It was a lot of money. But then, like, all the trips to the 15-minute check-ins and the broken wire, and like, it was a huge investment of money and time and energy and everything else. And so after the 6 years, he gets his braces off, and he was so happy to be done with it, understandably so, that he didn't want anything else in his mouth, and he refused to wear his retainer. And right. I mean, moms in the audience were like, like gasping and holding their mouths and like, oh no, what could be done? And I told them, of course, I wanted him to wear his retainer. It was so upsetting to me that he wouldn't wear the dumb retainer. And I tried to explain it to him. And I could have gone several ways. I could have threatened him. I could have been like, listen, for all we've done to get these teeth straight, you're not going out with friends on the weekend. You give me your phone right now until you promise me you're wearing that retainer every second. And he would have hated me, right? We would have locked horns and he would have hated me. I could have tried bribing him. There are a million things I could have done. Ultimately, I just said to him, hey, all right, I've done what I can do. It's in your hands now. Understand that if your teeth shift, if anything changes, that's goes into your court. Like you'll have to figure that out later. And we had a very happy relationship as his teeth shifted, you know, and they're not bad, but like he'll make a decision later. He's bothered by them. He's bothered by them. So now he has a feeling of regret, which is the greatest teacher ever, right? Better than if I'd gone in and like shoved that retainer and held it in place or taken away his phone. Regret's the best teacher because now he is so much more disciplined about himself. So it turned out great. He may end up, you know, caring about it enough to do something about it or not. He doesn't need to. He looks amazing. But
hey, that is such a great story. And my question is, how hard was it for you to stand down?
For me, it was not particularly hard. For my husband, because you know me, manager of emotions.
Right. You're like, as long as you're okay.
Was it because your husband knew about the time and the money that was invested? Because that's where I would have gone. Like, listen, this was our money, our time. We drove you, blah, blah, blah. And you're not going to throw all that away. Like, that's the attitude. I don't know if I would.
I was going to say all those things you just said, you would never say. That's in your.
There is a part of
there is a part of
that
you.
would absolutely say that. Would I actually do it?
No.
Probably not. But that is where I would have gone. So it was easier for you, harder for your husband. Why was it harder for your husband?
Right. So my husband wouldn't say it to the kids, but it's the kind of thing where he'd say it to me. And that's where I'm then like, I got to manage how you feel about this. So he would say to me that it's disrespectful. It's like, we've done all of this and now he's just going to throw it all away. And my response to things like that is it's like giving somebody a gift. Like you can't control what they do with it. You can only give the gift, right? We can only make these things available and then people do what they will with them. So I think that bothered him. And then also a little bit of the like, the needing to be right for him. The like, but I know what's best.
Sure.
I want to spare you. And I know it comes from a place of love. And I know it comes from a very protective sort of feeling of like, I want you to get this right so you can continue to get it right and be happier and be, you know, all these things. But yeah, I just think the real lesson is, how does the kid learn?
Yeah.
And if you have a kid who's an experiential learner who learns by going through it, not by being told, then sometimes you just have to sit back and brush your hands off and say, let's see how this plays out.
So let's go down the road. Let's pretend you did the other thing and forced, bribed, whatever.
Right.
What would have been compromised is your relationship with your son and his relationship with you, right? But he would have had straight teeth. So So I think it's safe to say that everybody knows that Cathy and I are on board with what you did, but it's so hard to make that decision in the moment.
But is it? Like, I really want to like dive into this because I think that it's not a moment decision. It's a moment by moment decision. Right. You're deciding every day, I'm not going to say anything about this. And I always like play it out all the way. So like you said, so his teeth are going to shift a little bit. And maybe when he's 25 or 30 or 35, my sister ended up getting braces again when she was like 48, like, and wore them for a year. And things are so different. You can do Invisalign now. I think my point is he's got a story too. Like, we had a daughter, our middle daughter was pretty traumatized by the whole teeth thing. She was kind of like a guinea pig in a lot of ways with some things we were doing, new things with, what was it called? That thing
the expander. We had that too. Yes.
So she went through a lot of things that were somewhat traumatizing for her. I mean, she will say, whoa, all that orthodontics. So you can kind of understand a kid being like, I'm not going to put anything in my mouth for a little bit. There's a story that he's not, you know, and again, you guys know this because you talked, you know, this is what you're saying, but he's not saying, I think I'm going to really piss off mom and dad and not wear my retainer because I don't respect them. And he's like, I'm struggling with this. And so I'm going to go this way and I'll figure it out later.
I think, you know, we can very clearly say, here's how I see this.
Yeah.
Here's how, a couple ways this could pan out. They don't shift. Great. Maybe they do shift. Here are your options. If that happens, you've got to make the decision. Also, I'm a big sort of your body, your choice person. So like, if it's, you know, I'm not going to force some kind of medical treatment on you that isn't really necessary. Like if I have to make decisions about if vaccines for my kids when they're little, things like that, then that's, to me, is very different than something that's more cosmetic, that sort of thing, or enables you to play a sport or whatever it might be. So I think your choice, and what I think my kid needed at that time was a parent who trusted him and said, I hear what you're saying and I believe you.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I feel like there needs to be some thoughtfulness about what's at risk. And a 4-year-old running out into the street while a car is driving by, that's a different story. Or teenage pregnancy or whatever it is, some type of irreversible-ish decision. Whereas teeth shifting, that's a big deal, but it's not running out in the street when you're 4-year-old big deal. And it's not something, because us parents, we get so jacked up about stuff that means nothing.
And I think a lot of reason that we get really jacked up, and this is why, like the thing that we've been talking about on Zen Parenting for 80,000 years, is the self-awareness piece. Because if you understand why this bothers you so much, it's really easy to pull back and make a decision that has more clarity and more comfort, or at least present day experience for your child. So you're not living in your history and saying you have to do this. For example, with the teeth, like a parent who's like, I didn't get to have braces, I didn't have orthodontics, or a parent who were teased about their teeth, or a parent who, broke a tooth or whatever. There's so much energy in teeth.
They're working from that wound.
So when they're saying to their kid, you don't understand, really, they're talking about their teeth.
Yes.
They're not talking about their kids' teeth.
And I wonder how you feel about this relating to this is the hardest thing for me to watch. I don't even know how to say it. This trend towards health and wellness that parents are, I feel, desperately trying to control appearance through the guise of health and wellness. And I am just aghast, and I don't know. And that sounds like a dramatic reaction, but I'm so worried about kids whose parents are so heavily invested in, well, you need to fuel your body right, and you need to have the right nutrition and all this stuff. And I'm like, it just feels like it would be terrible to have to hear that as a child.
And it's those words, Michelle, the words healthy. We have had a lot of experiences in our family with eating disorders. Like, it's something that's why we're having people at our conference who are talking about eating disorders. We have a therapist and a dietitian who work together and they're amazing. Like you'll love them. You're going to be like, I need to, because they're so thoughtful about these things and about language and because the word healthy has been hijacked.
100%.
And the word, what does it mean? In our generation, us as Gen Xers, grew up with the most ridiculous kind of eating patterns, the food that was available to us. My parents were on a diet all the time. I remember in the basement, Nutrisystem boxes. I remember Weight Watchers. I remember chips. And I was doing, and you'd have stomach problems for days.
Yes.
And then there'd be Slim Fast, let's get rid of, and this is still available. I'm not saying it's gone, but we have been trained to there's a difference between, and again, I know people debate this, but this is how Todd and I talk about it. There's a difference between an eating disorder, which is clinical, and disordered eating, which I think the majority of our generation has and beyond, because we're teaching the same habits. It's kind of like the example I gave last night to Todd was there's depression. Everybody experienced depression, and then there's clinical depression, so eating disorder, disordered eating. But it's like we do these things and then we worry about our kids, and we also don't understand. And this is why the whole thing with Ozempic kind of sucks, where I'm so glad that I'm always happy that there's new alternatives for people. It's not that I'm mad at Ozempic, but we were kind of getting to a place where people are like, oh, different bodies, different looks, different health can come in many different forms. It's not about, BMI is, we don't swear on the show, but it's crap. It doesn't mean anything. And we were just starting to get to that place. And now everybody's like, Ozempic, you can take a shot. And so I am just as concerned as you are, because I think the language and fasting for kids.
Oh, no. It just feels like whether it's food stuff, body health, wellness stuff, or wearing your retainer, or, getting into the very best college that your friends are saying they're going to go to, whatever it is, it feels to me like the need for control has ramped up to almost every aspect of our kids' lives. Whereas like it used to be like, I mean, I sound like a really nostalgic old person right now, but I just am a little bit longing for the, like, I don't know what my kid ate today. They fed themselves, they found stuff and they're fine. As opposed to that like high level of control. I had a parent ask me on book tour about their son wearing a baseball hat all the time. He felt most comfortable when he was wearing a baseball hat, and she didn't want him to wear the hat. And what should she do? And I was like, I think you should just let him wear the baseball hat. And she was like, but he can't wear it everywhere. And I was like, couldn't he? Like, I'm like, it seems like he probably could wear it. I mean, maybe not to a funeral, but maybe to a funeral. I don't really know. Like, I don't know. And so she was like, but I want him to wear it at school. And I was like, is it against the rules? And she said, no, but I told his teachers not to let him wear it. And I was like, the level of needing to control the minutia of what's happening. I feel sad because I know it's a desperate attempt to not lose it. Right. Yeah, right. But it's not good for us to have that level of control. And who's the actress? Someone just Jennifer. I love her. She's adorable. No, you're going to know in a second. She does all the work with kids. She said she was married to Ben Affleck. Help me.
Oh, Jennifer Garner. Yeah.
Garner just said she likes to treat her kids with benign neglect.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
And I love that saying. I think that's what we need more of.
I know I'm sorry, Ted, I know you, but just like that thing, like you said, some of us, especially Gen Xers, are like, oh, we were like feral children and we were on our own and there's such a beauty in that. And we have overcompensated. Like, I understand I was also very lonely and was a latchkey kid and did, we needed to kind of ramp it up a bit, but we overcompensated, like we just went way too far where now we think that anything we're not noticing is literal neglect. We're like, I didn't know that. How did I not know that? And we talk about this a lot with parents who are dealing with school and, knowing their kids' grades in Power School and having access to it. There's a culture of, you didn't know that? There's a culture of even the school sending, because I'm getting emails from my kid's school this week. Obviously, she's a sophomore in high school. We want parents to know this, check this, do this. And it's like, you can't check out because the culture around you is expecting you to be on, like hypervigilant as well.
I think Cathy has much more patience. And let's just pick on baseball hat lady for a second. There'd be a part of me that would be like, lady, do your own work. This has to do with your relationship with your control. This has to do with how your child walks through this earth is dependent on how you feel about yourself and how other people perceive you. I just don't know how to say that without being a jerk. So I usually just shut up. But that's where I always go to is like, do your own work, investigate your own reactivity. Why is this so important? And maybe she just needed to hear from you that it was okay. If he wears his hat. But there's a part of me that's like, just do your work, lady. And I got to say that to myself because it's so easy to get reactionary or defensive or try to put control on, what happens is we want to control our kids because we feel out of control ourselves. So
Michelle, this book, 8 Setbacks, you are on this book tour, obviously, like the lady with the hat, a lot of people are asking you questions. And this book is about failure and about allowing our kids to fail well. Which you put something on Instagram today that I loved. It was about like fail more or what was it?
It was like I happened to be in a cute little gift shop the other day, and it was a little Samuel Beckett quote printed up on a card. You could fish through the bowl and pick out the quotes you liked. It was very cute, like typewriter font. And it just was a little quote of his that ended with like, fail more, fail better, all this thing. And really the idea behind the book itself is that not only is it good for kids to fail, I think it's the necessary step in helping a child become an adult. There's a ton of research in here that spans decades and centuries around what the sort of universal truths are about how people grow up. What lessons do we need to learn? How do we become more adult in our way of thinking? And a key piece of that is you have to be challenged enough to go off on your own, do something independently without your parents there, without someone trying to control you. You make a mistake, you learn from that mistake and you have an epiphany and you grow. And maybe that happens a million little times, or maybe it happens one big time, probably happens a million little times for most people. But we can all probably remember a moment from being a latchkey kid, or from going to summer camp, or being at school when our parents weren't around, where we did something and we realized that was wrong, and then had a real aha moment, and a parent didn't have to rub it in our face, make us write an essay about what we learned, right? You knew, like, I shouldn't have said that to that person. I could see I hurt their feelings, or I shouldn't have stolen that candy bar, or I shouldn't have whatever. That is how we grow. And we can't just read books on how to be a good person or watch movies about it. You have to experience it.
Well, and one thing that I adopted is the world is hard enough. Like, the world is going to give our kids and ourselves all the lessons. Our job is to stay in connection. So kind of like you with the braces, like that is so beautiful. So we got 6 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we cover anything else that you want to cover. Sweetie, I don't know.
Wait, before you go there, we do not just have 6 minutes. Is that it?
Yes.
I feel like I know this is the most cliche thing to say, but I feel like we started 2 seconds ago. I have like 80,000 things on here.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
It's okay. We're still going to do the hard stop, but a few things that I wanted to say about that. One is what we talk about, you said it, a lot of cuts, a lot of experiences. A lot of times we think death by 1,000 cuts, but it's really growth by 1,000 cuts. It's like all these things that have to happen. And I heard, this is what I wanted to share with you. I heard Esther Perel on a podcast yesterday. She was on Chelsea Handler's podcast, and she said her favorite question that she's been asking people lately is, were you allowed to go out and play by yourself?
Oh, yeah.
Because that helps her when she's working with couples or working with individuals on how to approach them. Because if you were not allowed to go out and play by yourself and learn, you don't get to pick up that bike, or someone will yell at you, or you have to, be quick, or you'll get left behind, or all of those childhood experiences. If you don't learn that, if your parent is micromanaging your life, you experience life different. So isn't that a great question?
I love that question.
Me too.
I'm so happy that I can think for myself and from my husband's stories of being a kid, like there were these very feral, like rogue elements to our childhood that I remember so fondly.
Me too.
No doubt.
Me too.
4 minutes. Michelle, anything? We didn't really talk much about the book. We kind of told you that was going to happen.
It's her books. Everybody knows about Michelle's book. I mean, I feel like we're promoting her books, but people know her. Like, she's known for being the middle school person. So, and like I said, this book, what is the age group for eight setbacks? What's the range?
This is my first book that is 8 to 18. So
cool.
it's all through late childhood and adolescence, not completely through adolescence, because we know it goes all the way to like mid-20s, but all the way through high school. And I think what I want people to know about the book is that every kid experiences failure at some point, and it might not be dramatic. You might not know that they're going through it, but it's really key to know how you respond to your child when they are facing some kind of a setback or a challenge. That's what helps them grow and learn from it. As we talked about before, that's what pushes them towards adulthood, your reaction. And if you have a reaction that is not positive, you can kind of get them stuck there in that phase. So really the idea behind the book is, I know my kid's going to butt up against something at some point. I want to be prepared so I know how to respond in a way that's going to help them grow and learn from that.
I'm so glad that book is out there, because that's exactly, I'm so glad you wrote about it and you talk about it. And when we decided to do this conference again, because last year we did a virtual one because obviously COVID, we were still worried about COVID. But you were the first person that we wanted at this conference. Yeah. So just so you know, I mean, Duffy does it every year, so he's just a given. He's basically done,
He's
but
grandfathered in, yes.
He's grandfathered. Yeah. Like anytime we do it, he's in. But Michelle, you are the first person, because I'm so impressed with your work and I just think you're wonderful. So I just thank you for doing what you do.
Oh my gosh, I'm honored. Thank you.
The name of the book is 8 Setbacks That Can Make a Child a Success. And Michelle will be keynoting on Saturday.
She's on Saturday. Yeah. And then we're doing 2 things with Michelle. She has her own keynote where she's going to talk about whatever she wants to talk about because she's the expert. We don't micromanage that part. And then at the end of the day, for the last 30, 40 minutes, it's going to be Todd and I and Michelle and Duffy. We're going to do just like a panel where people can ask questions. So we're there. All it's going to be is Q&A. So you'll get lots of good time with Michelle.
Michelle, thank you so much. We will see you in about 6 weeks. Go buy the book, everybody. Get ready for Michelle coming into Chicagoland on January 26th and 27th.
Yeah.
Bring me all your baseball hat related questions.
We will. And wait, say your website so people know where to find you.
Good idea.
Oh, it's just my name. So it's Michelle with 2 L's and my last name is Icard.
Good. And go follow her on Instagram, everybody.
Please.
All right. We're going to do this. See you all next week. Keep trucking. And we'll have Duffy next week, I think.
We will?
Yeah, I think so. We'll get it. We'll get
him in here eventually.
So we'll see y'all next week.